Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Kauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Askatyade Satarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Brahmadakasharya Asadhara Satushi Shriman His Divine Grace Lacy Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribo Slava Zabrani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Grangi Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswatunde Deve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Siddharne Om Agana Timirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahayam Dadati Swak Padantikam Vandeham Shiguro, Shiyuta Parakamalam, Shigurum Vaishnavam Scha, Shi Rupam Sagrajatam, Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam, Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padan, Sahagana Lalita, Shiva Sakanzvitam Scha, Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostute, Tapta Kanchana Gorangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Prishubhanu Sutta Devi, Pranamami Hari Priye, Vanchakapa Trivyascha, Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha, Patiranam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitinanda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 11, Universal Form, Text number 1. Arjuna Vacha Maranugrahaya Paramam Guyam Adhyatma Samgitam Yatva Yoktam Vachastena Mohoyam Vigato Mama Arjuna Vacha Maranugrahaya Paramam Guyam Adhyatma Samgitam Yat Tvayoktam Vachastena Mohoyam Vigato Mama Arjuna Vacha Maranugrahaya Paramam Gitam Yastena Mohoyam Vigato Mama Nurvacha Maranugrahaya Paramam Ladies. Arjuna Vacha Madanugrahaya Paramam Kuyamadhyatma Samgitam Yatvayoktam Vachastena Arjuna Vacha. Arjuna said, Mad Anugrahaya, just to show me favor. Paramam, supreme. Guyam, confidential subject. Adhyatma, spiritual. Samgitam, in the matter of. Yat, what? Tvaya, by you. Yuktam, said. Vacha, words. Tena, by that. Moha, illusion. Ayam, this. Vigata, is removed. Mama, my. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Arjuna said, by my hearing the instructions you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects, my illusion has now been dispelled. Purport. This chapter reveals Krishna as the cause of all causes. He is even the cause of Mahavishnu, from whom the material universes emanate. Krishna is not an incarnation. He is the source of all incarnations. That has been completely explained in the last chapter. Now, as far as Arjuna is concerned, he says that his illusion is over. This means that Arjuna no longer thinks of Krishna as a mere human being, as a friend of his, but as the source of everything. Arjuna is very enlightened and is glad that he has such a great friend as Krishna. But now he's thinking that although he may accept Krishna as the source of everything, others may not. So in order to establish Krishna as divinity for all, he's requesting Krishna in this chapter to show his universal form. Actually, when one sees the universal form of Krishna, one becomes frightened, like Arjuna. But Krishna is so kind that after showing it, he converts himself again into his original form. Arjuna agrees to what Krishna has several times said. Krishna is speaking to him just for his benefit. So Arjuna acknowledges that all this is happening to him by Krishna's grace. He is now convinced that Krishna is the cause of all causes and is present in everyone's heart as the Supersoul. So again, Mad Anugrahaya Paramam Guyamat Yatma Samgitam Yat Prayoktas Vachastena Mahoyam Vikato Mama. Arjuna said, by hearing the instructions you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects, my illusion has now been dispelled. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Dhanamane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskadyade Satarane. Arjuna says that by hearing from Krishna, his illusion has been dispelled. So at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was afraid of killing his relatives because he thought his relatives, if he killed them, he couldn't enjoy on this planet. Because, generally speaking, family life in the material world is a source of enjoyment. And family life, at least in the Vedic culture, meant extended family life. That you would have not only your wife and children, but you would have your father and mother. They were all living together. Grandparents were living together. Aunts and uncles were living together. Nephews, etc., etc. They were all part of a family. And they all cooperated. Everyone had a service to do in the development of the family. In other words, the energies of the father and mother are complementary, and most should be complementary, that the mother is soft and the father is supposed to be strict. One is nurturing, the other is disciplining. Similarly, the grandparents are another level of nurturing. They're even more softer than usually the parents are. Well, the aunts and uncles are protective, etc., etc. Therefore, in the Vedic culture, having a nice family was considered great opulence. Nowadays, people would rather have a dog than a good family. Or they trade in their family for a car. So this is quite unfortunate that such a society, not only they're an illusion, but they're, as Prahlad Maharaj said, they're a super illusion. They're vimudhas. They think they'll have a more intimate relationship with a dog or a cat than they will with another human being in Kali Yuga. And practically it's all imagination. My dog loves me. Ooh, foofy, you love me. He licks his behind, cleaning himself. Then he licks your mouth to give you some of his remnants. Pass on some of his love to you. And then people are so illusioned, they think that this is actually sweet. He's licking me. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that Dhyayato Vishayam Pumsam Sangas Te Shupajayate Sangas Sanjayate Kama Kama Krodo Bhajayate Krodad Bhavati Samoha Samaha Smriti Vibramsat Smriti Bramsat Buddhinasho Buddhinashat Pranashate. That material existence, and material existence means a conception of what's going on here. Because actually we're not really in the material world. In the sense, we're in the material world as defined by the fact that we think we're separated from Krishna. So that's called the material world. A place where all the conditioned souls are an illusion, imagining themselves as being separated from Krishna and living like a dreamlike existence in that separation. Dreamlike existence, at least in Kali Yuga, of fear, anxiety, terror, and trying to squeeze a little bit of happiness amongst all the problems. And one who gets 2 drops of happiness in Kali Yuga is said to be an ecstatic personality. Above the rest, who only are getting half a drop. But everything begins because the fact that we're not satisfied. We don't feel ourselves complete. We feel something's wrong. Usually we feel something's wrong with everyone else. Usually when we look at ourselves, the only thing we do is lament the fact that people don't realize how great I am. And when we look at everyone else, we think about how their main problem is they don't realize how great I am, and therefore they're exhibiting so many bad qualities. And we're hankering to be recognized and lamenting the fact that we're not. We're hankering to get what we think is missing. Usually it's some object of the senses. And we're lamenting the fact that we never get exactly, the object always turns out to be different than we thought it would be. Romeo and Juliet, they didn't have a happy ending. Although Tarzan and Jane apparently have a better ending. And Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse, their love affair seems to be almost on the level of Radha and Krishna, never breaking. But everyone's hankering for the perfect relationship, and whatever relationship that they get, they immediately start lamenting, it's not exactly what I thought it would be. Everything is like that in Kali Yuga. Everything is advertised. It's going to last forever. It's going to give you unlimited happiness. It's going to enlighten you so that you know exactly how to win friends and influence people with it, impress them. That only such a superior person as you could have had such a wonderful thing. And then everyone else has the same wonderful thing. So that way they could take an iPhone and increase the price for just practically what was supposed to be a telephone. People will spend thousands of euros on it for something that's probably could serve the same function for 50 euros. But because they have to have some prestige, I got an iPhone, and then everyone else gets an iPhone. And then you got to get a better iPhone, if you can, if you don't max out your credit card. Wind up paying 3 lifetimes later for it. So this is called dhyato. Everyone's looking for what is that perfect object that will actually satisfy my senses, and especially my false ego. And vishayam pumsam. So we look around, when we find it, then sangha sanjayate kama. Then Maya says, that's it, go for it. You can't live without it. Unless you try hard to get it, I'm just going to burn you and make you feel anxiety, hanker for more and more. And then if we get it and it satisfies us, then we become greedy. Then we want more of it. And if we get it and we lose it, then we become angry and frustrated. Or we get it, it's not up to our expectation. It wasn't what we promised, then we become angry. You said you love me, but you only love my money. Or you said I was beautiful, but actually you're just trying to exploit me. You'll say anything to get what you want. So then we become angry. Oh, you cheated me. You lied to me. You said you love me, but you don't really love me. As soon as something goes wrong, especially in Kali Yuga, immediately there's a breakup. I love you as long as you don't get sick and cause me to work for you. So, everyone is being in this drama of pretending that we're Radha and Krishna. As the drama goes on, and we're always disappointed in the drama because none of us are actually Radha and Krishna. Sorry. And even the best of us will never become Radha or Krishna. We can only play like that, like little children play with toy dolls. Little girls make believe that they have a dollhouse and that they're, these dolls are married to each other, and they have their little bedroom, and they have their kitchen, and they're cooking, and they're just imagining. So the material world is just a place where everyone's just dreaming that they're actually something that they're not, and trying to squeeze some happiness out of it. Hankering for it, always disappointed, and then lamenting. But the illusion goes on as long as we remain fixed that this is the goal of life, is to hanker and lament for things. Then we wind up taking the dream that we're in seriously, not realizing what we're actually supposed to be doing. And then we forget. We're already in forgetfulness. But right now, for instance, we're aspiring to become devotees. So we remember sometimes, I'm eternal soul, I'm not this body, I should be serving Krishna. But just go out there, go to the neighborhood bar, take a couple of drinks, and you'll forget everything. You'll be just part of the crowd again. You'll become normal in complete forgetfulness. And then we lose our intelligence. As soon as we forget who we actually are, that we're eternal souls, servants of Krishna, then our intelligence goes out the window, and even Krishna can't even really say what we're going to do. Because everything's, especially devotees, aspiring devotees, when they fall into Maya, they got to prove, or they got to forget Krishna. So they really got to work hard at sense gratification. Even the karmis are amazed at this person. How much sense gratification they can get into. Because they have to forget. So they really have to absorb themselves in illusion. Otherwise, they keep on remembering Krishna, karma, reincarnation, the whole thing's a waste, and they can't enjoy. But they got to enjoy. They want to enjoy. That's why they gave up Krishna consciousness. So here, of course, we find the universal form. So those who have read the Bhagavad Gita, then this is rather a strange chapter. We'll find out Krishna's eating warriors. We thought he was a vegetarian. Not only that, but he doesn't even bother cooking them. Maybe he only eats raw soldiers. He's a raw food addict. And fire is coming out of his mouth, smoking too much. And so many heads twirling, discs, clubs, lotus flowers, destroying the universe, fulgence. It's that we may wonder, where does this fit into the Bhagavad Gita? It's so extraordinary. His effulgence, as Arjuna says, is so great that if 10 millions of suns could rise up into the sky, it might resemble the effulgence of the Supreme Lord in that universal form. So why is it included? Krishna has said at the end of the 10th chapter, Ataiva boina tena kim yatena dud arjuna vishtabraham idam kritsnam ekam stena sito jagat. But what need is there of all this detailed knowledge of Arjuna? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire cosmic creation. So why did Krishna put in the universal form? Because otherwise the whole thing is so theoretical. Now we may not believe, or we may only have partial faith, I could say, that there was a person called Arjuna, and that there was a person called Krishna, and he was speaking Bhagavad Gita, and it had some interesting things like the body's changing, but we're not changing, the super soul's giving us remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, planets are moving their orbits. It has a lot of good points in there. Now, Krishna, by explaining what a universal form is, how he himself is personally involved in maintaining, controlling, and destroying this universe, it gives us some kind of vision apart from our normal everyday vision, but pertaining to the material world. Now, in the spiritual world, we hear about it, and because we're not that realized, or if we're not that realized, then it sounds like a fairy tale to us. Krishna is a coward boy, and he's at least his Boma Leela pastimes, he's killing demons, like Aghasura, who's opening his mouth, his tongue is like a highway, his upper lip is touching the clouds, the coward boys and the calves, they're all walking into it, the mouth of Aghasura, thinking that he's a statue. Now, if a child hears this, they'll think it's just a fairy tale. And if we hear it, we'll probably think it's a fairy tale too. Because what do we know actually about Krishna? How much do we know about Krishna? How much do we know about what Krishna's internal energy is? That there's a Trinavarta coming as a whirlwind, picking up Krishna and flying 800 yojanas into the sky. Thousands of miles into the sky, with little baby Krishna hanging onto his neck. That there's a person who's a whirlwind demon? How many have you met lately? How many Aristosuras have you met? Or Agasuras? Trinavartas? Or Dhenukasuras? Dhenukasura was actually so strong, he actually lifted up Govardhan Hill when Govardhan Hill was much bigger and threw it at Krishna. And Krishna caught it and threw it back at Dhenukasura, and it hit Dhenukasura and he was knocked unconscious for a few hours. Then he gained consciousness, picked up the Govardhan Hill and threw it again at Krishna. So Srimad Bhagavatam only gives us a little glimpse because otherwise it's too shocking for us. It's enough we think it's a fairy tale, but we think it's, it's too much of a fairy tale. Now here, when we hear it, we also think it's some kind of weird, strange, put into the midst of all this philosophy, this description of a universal form in which we're living, and therefore it shows us, at least, number one, that if we do have faith, it wasn't Arjuna and then Krishna. There's something even in this very world that we're living in that goes way beyond our present experience and understanding. And that how the material world is working, even Krishna doesn't like it. He says, Ugra Rupo. Arjuna asked Krishna, Agyaki me ko bhavan Ugra Rupo, Namosute deva vraprasida, Vigatami ichami vivantamadhyam, Ihi prajanami tava pravritim. Agyaki me ko bhavan. Please tell me, Krishna, why are you displaying this universal form, this horrible form? Ugra Rupo. What's the purpose? What's your mission? I mean, everyone, when they do something, usually they have a purpose. Why this universal form? You seem like such a nice person. We were playing games together, sometimes going hunting together. You seem like a normal person. And then, you show this side of you. Why are you doing this? Why are you eating people? We're giving you prasadam every day. Can't you just, maintain a vegetarian diet? What's going on? So then Krishna says, Kalosmi lokashe krit pravido, lokan samahartamiha pravidhak, vitepi tvam namba vishanti sarve, evastita pratnukeshu yoda. Time I am, the destroyer of all the world. So here Krishna is identifying himself with our greatest, what we think is our greatest enemy, time. Time I am the destroyer of all the worlds. Oh, he's the one who's doing the whole thing. He's the one who's destroying everything. Aha. He had such a nice, he looks so nice on the altar, but what he does on his spare time is pretty interesting. So he's come here to engage everyone, including the Pandavas, except for the Pandavas. That means us too. And everyone's going to be slain. So Krishna's going to kill us all. The same person we're chanting his name and glorifying, he's the number one terrorist in the universe. He's the real terrorist, killing everyone. Even that little baby who was so innocent, he's the one who killed it. He's come to engage everyone. Except for the Pandavas, everyone here on both sides is going to be killed, slain. So Krishna is showing us that this world that we're living in is not the fairy tale Romeo and Juliet, whatever, Radha Krishna pastime place. It's a horrible place where everyone gets chewed up by the universal form. Although we're imagining that somehow or another we're going to find a nice, peaceful, happy place here. We're going to live happily ever after in our fairy tale land with Peter Pan and his associates, Twinkle Bell. Do they have that here, Twinkle Bell? Peter Pan? Yeah. Up to date. But that's not what Krishna is showing us in the universal form. This is the place that you want to get out of. You don't want to hang out and see if you can make a better, happy settlement here. It's a place to flee, and that's what the whole Bhagavad Gita is about. Take shelter of Krishna as a way of getting out of this universal form, and Krishna is happy to let us out. And if not, then he's going to chew us. If we want to stay here, we're going to get chewed up, that's all. Like everyone gets chewed up. So you take one road, you get chewed up. You take the other road, you're actually in never land, Krishna consciousness. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Actually, as you were very nicely explaining, to make it very obvious and dramatic, Krishna places the whole story into battlefield, right? Now, when you are talking Bhagavad Gita with someone who is approaching Krishna consciousness, or maybe just, getting to know something about Bhagavad Gita, how do you overcome this challenge? Because it comes as a surprise to people sometimes, that, like, how can, it's a God's book, He spoke it Himself, and we are dealing with a battlefield here. So any advice on that, how to approach, how to gently, convey, get across with this message?
Well, the whole material world is like a battlefield. If anyone thinks that they're not struggling here, like in a battle, they're in another land, in another place that I'm at. But everyone's struggling here, like in a battlefield. And the whole idea is that Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, just like He'd speak to us, as if we could hear Him within our heart as their chariot driver. And as Arjuna was an illusion in his fight, so we're also an illusion fighting, struggling in this material world due to our material attachments to especially our relatives and our family members and our friends. So it's analogous, Krishna being in a battlefield, to our present situation. Besides that, unless there's some difficulty, no one breaks down and asks real important questions. When they're having some kind of Mardi Gras or some kind of festival, it's not the time you sit around and you say, what should a person do if he's about to die? Could you imagine going to a party and they're having celebration, and you turn to the host and you say, could you please, now that we're having this party and everyone's enjoying, could you just answer one question? What should we all do that we're about to die? Probably they'll call the police on you and have you arrested because they're afraid you might be a suicide bomber or something. It's very inappropriate in that situation. You only ask really important questions when there's a real difficult situation, meaningful questions. Otherwise, everyone's asking, where's the nearest ice cream parlor? Is there a good pizza place in town? That's the kind of questions they're asking. You don't go up to the pizza place and say, usually people go, can you give me a pizza? You don't go, my dear sir, would you know what the duty of a person who's about to die is? So this is appropriate for serious questions. Krishna put Arjuna in a serious situation so he can ask the right questions.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Anything else? Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, one question here. Oh.
In the purport, Srila Prabhupada said that Arjuna wanted to establish for all Krishna's divinity. And I wanted to ask that sometimes I notice this desire in devotees, sometimes myself included, about convincing people by any means, people who are convinced otherwise by any means about Krishna, about spiritual process and so on. Is this a right thing to do?
No, of course not. You can't convince people by any means. You have to have the right means. You have to find out. Generally speaking, the only way people get convinced of anything is when they experience it. So if you're going to get people to experience bliss, eternal bliss and knowledge, generally we try to give them knowledge. We tell them you're not that body. But then, of course, there's a super soul in your heart and Krishna is God. But the only way they're going to listen to you is if they actually have some love for you. You don't listen to anyone that you don't have. Sometimes you listen to people you're afraid of, because you're afraid that if you don't listen to them, they'll do something bad to you. But generally, most of the people, most of us are not so ferocious that people have any fear of us. Therefore, the only way we can actually get people to listen to them is to get them to love us. Then they might listen a little bit to us. Otherwise, there's no other way they're going to listen.
If they are already convinced of something,
People
is
are
there
convinced
any
of everything.
is there any way to convince them otherwise?
Give them some prasadam.
So not with arguments or...
Oh yeah, have you ever been convinced by an argument?
No. That's why I'm saying, because I see this, and I also have this tendency to give arguments, and at some point I realize it's
usually
useless.
it's just our own gratification. I mean, we give arguments, of course, if people want to listen to them. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. We're just trying to convince ourselves, really. But usually when we see that the result of arguing with people is that they become discouraged, then we become depressed. Because we haven't helped them, we've actually made the situation worse. Then we lose our own faith we had. Because we see that our arguments don't produce anything but animosity. But our arguments are supposed to produce love and nice relationships.
Yes, you mentioned that people might listen to us if they love us, but even if they love us, they might listen, but if they are convinced already of something, is there any point in doing this, or better not to try?
Well, you can get someone to love you, you're doing quite well, in Krishna consciousness at least. I mean, there's so many possibilities. I mean, you can get your dog to love you. He won't follow your instructions to chant 16 rounds. But unless someone likes you, why will he listen to you? Do you listen to people you don't like? Do you take them seriously?
But even the people that I like, if I'm convinced of something, I might listen, out of my sentiments for them, but cannot turn my mind around.
Nothing's perfect. You got to take it one step at a time. Surrender, submission, and then service. Because even they listen to you, unless they do something on the basis of what you said, they won't get the experience. And therefore they still won't be convinced. So therefore our process is just try to engage people a little bit. Give them some prasadam, get them to chant Hare Krishna, get them to take a book, get them to come to class, get them to get some experience. That's the only way they're going to become a little convinced. Get them to become happy by following the process. Not just to love us, but to love us, to at least appreciate us, that there's something that they appreciate, so we can get them to do something in Krishna's service. And that's the only way they're actually going to be convinced, when Krishna convinces them, by revealing himself in some way. All right. Well, we have a question here.
Hare Krishna. This is a question from Avadutta Rai Das, and it says, Hare Krishna, in the morning lecture today it was said we should not repeat the words of a lecturer. I don't know what to think about that statement, because Srila Prabhupada said a good disciple, a good disciple repeats the words of the spiritual master. Can you explain a bit?
Well, I don't know. Yeah. Well, actually what was said this morning was that you shouldn't go to class simply in order to learn something so you can use it in your own preaching. So we should go to class to learn something so that we can serve. Anyhow, I don't see anything wrong with going to class to learn something you can repeat. But somehow or another, Chandamali Maharaj went to class with that idea, and the lecturer somehow or another picked up on it or said something like that. And he got discouraged. I don't know why he got discouraged. Because he repeated the same thing anyhow. So that was the only thing he remembered from his class. So he did exactly what he was told not to do. So he did it anyhow, so I don't know. Anything else?
And Avadutta Rai Das says also, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati writes, one should serve the master of the senses with purified senses. And now the question, how can we know when the senses are purified?
You'll be in ecstasy all the time. You'll see everything, you'll see Krishna everywhere. That's called purified senses. All right.
Thank you.
Grandaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.